Hello there, this is Greg, and today we are talking about making your very own unbreakable passwords. Okay, you ready to talk about unbreakable passwords? Well, here we go. Now, first, let's talk about what makes a password breakable, right? The first thing is it could be too short or too simple so that the hackers can guess it using their various different brute force attack tools. Another way that we get in trouble with our passwords is if we use them on lots of different accounts. Like if we have kind of our favorite password, and because we can remember it, we use it on all sorts of things. At some point, everywhere that we use that out there on the internet, that's an opportunity for a hacker to get that information, right? And so we don't want to do that. We only want to use passwords on one account each. And then another way that we can lose track of our passwords or give them over to the hackers is if we've written it down somewhere in plain text. If we've got it, on a document that's stored somewhere that a hacker can get to, and it's just written out in plain text, then we've made it way too easy for them. Now, of course, there are strong passwords, and that's what we're talking about here. These are passwords that are complicated. They don't look like anything that you'd ever recognize. There's no words, there's numbers and special characters, uppercase, lowercase. They're complicated. The problem with strong passwords is that they're really hard to remember. They're kind of impossible to remember. Now, you can use your browser to create and store your strong passwords, and that's great. I love that solution. But the thing is, that doesn't always work, right? There are some places where your browser isn't going to be able to do that for you. Maybe different apps and different things like that. So the fact is, you're going to need to have your own way of generating and storing and recalling these strong passwords. So you ready to see how we're going to do this? What we're going to do is we're going to come up with a way that uses a 3-part password. The first part is going to use letters, the second part is going to use numbers, and the third part is going to use special characters. Are you with me? And then we're going to combine all those together, and it's going to be in the example I'm going to use. Now you can change it up as any way you like, but in my example it's going to end up being an 18-character long passcode that's going to look really funky. But there's a code, and you'll be able to generate it and also remind yourself and regenerate it anytime you need to, quickly and easily. Okay, you with me? So, step 1, we need a book. Now, you could use a song or a poem or other sorts of things, but we need something that's already been published, that's standard, it doesn't change, and is easily accessible or recallable by you. If you are some sort of a savant and you just have a photographic memory of these things, then great, you're all set. But for the rest of us, something that's easily retrievable. Now, my preference for this sort of an application is the Holy Bible. And it's not because I'm trying to make the world a better place. What I like about it is that every book has a name, every chapter has a number, and every paragraph or verse inside of that chapter also has a number. And so it's very easy out of that massive book to just zoom in and find any random little sentence that you want, and we're going to use that sentence. Okay, so again, this is not a values thing. It's a nicely indexed book. You could use other sorts of legal documents or things like that have paragraph numbers on them. But the other thing I like about the Bible is that it's published everywhere. There's just a million different online sources to go find it. So, okay. So step 1, we need our text that we're going to use to form our first letters. So what we're going to do is I'm going to keep using the Bible as an example. All right. Just because I'm just going to start with that one example, but you understand if you want to use something different, go for it. So what you're going to do, you can just do random, open it up and stick your finger on a verse. That works perfectly well. Or if you want to pick a favorite or whatever, doesn't matter. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick one verse out of the Bible, and that's going to have a book name. It's going to have a chapter name. It's going to have a chapter number, and it's going to have a verse number. Great. And now what you're going to do is you're going to read the first 10 words. Only the first 10, though. First 10 words of whatever that verse is. And what you're going to do is on a notepad or wherever you want, you're going to jot down the first letter of each of those first 10 words, right? So you're going to end up with 10 letters. Letter. And those, when you look at those letters, they're going to look like gibberish because they're going to be gibberish and it won't make any sense to anybody, right? Of course, you're going to note down what that book and chapter and verse, was, because you don't want to lose track of that, because you're going to need to be able to recreate it when you need to, right? So now you've got your first 10 letters. You're good to go. Now, step 2, we need numbers. Now, for numbers, again, I'm just using this as a template or an example. You can mix it up any way you like. What I'm suggesting is let's go for a 4-number sequence. Okay. Now, to do this, you can pick any number that is super familiar to you. So if I were to use my birth year, then I could say 1802, because of course that's the year I was born, and I'm going to remember 1802 very easily. I wasn't actually born in 1802. And what I'm going to do, though, I'm going to start with the number 1802, but I'm not going to end with a number of 1802. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that number 1802 and I'm going to do something to it. And in my case, what I'll do is I'll increase each one of those digits by 1. So instead of 1802, I'm going to end up with 2913, right? I'm going to get myself in trouble because I just made that number up and now I'm going to forget it. But at any rate, you see what I did. I didn't take 1802 and make it 1803. I didn't increment the entire number by 1. I incremented each digit in that 4-digit sequence by 1. And so long as I stick with that rule, I'm going to make that my rule for my unbreakable passwords, is that I start with my birth year or whatever, something, and I increase it by 1. As long as I'm consistent about that, or make a note to the contrary if I want to vary it up, then that's great. Now, the good thing about that is I've just created a 4-digit sequence that has nothing whatsoever to do with my life. Anybody, they could know everything about me, and they're never going to come up with that other date because that has 0 to do with anything in my life. It's just a completely random 4-digit sequence, right? You could decrease it by 1. You could multiply it by pi. I don't actually recommend that, but you could do whatever you wanted to those numbers and use a different, if you want to use some other string of numbers, it really doesn't matter. Just make sure that it's something you're going to remember, and then that you also remember how you modified it. Okay, so that's step 2. Now we've got our 4 numbers, which is, our birth year or whatever, increased by some number. So don't everybody use the birth year because we don't want to make this too easy for the bad guys. Okay, now the last thing we want are 4 special characters, right? Now, a super easy way to do this is essentially with the shift key. So if you're on a computer, laptop or desktop or whatever, and you're using a regular keyboard, what you can do is take those very same 4 numbers that you did in step 2, hit the shift key, and now what you're doing is you're creating 4 special characters that are the exact, so just those same numbers, what did I say for 1802? 2913. So I'm doing 2913, which would be, 4 different special characters. If I'm on a smartphone, like if I use a smartphone pretty much all the time to do this, then instead of hitting the shift key and doing whatever, what I'll do is I'll flip over to the alphanumeric, and where it'll say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or whatever across there, usually both in iOS and Android, and just below that will be a row of special characters. And so instead I might just do the same thing, take those numbers, but instead of using the numbers, I'm just going to use the special character that's right below it on that little soft keypad from my smartphone. You get the idea, right? Now, again, maybe you change it up a little bit. Maybe you go down and over 1 or something. You can change it up however you want, just so long as you keep track of what your special recipe is and be consistent about it. Does that make sense? So now what do? We take step 1, those 10 letters, step 2, the 4 numbers, step 3, the 4 special characters, and just join it up into one 18-character long passcode. Now, if you want bonus points, you can also mix in the letters. What you would do is take and maybe make the first one and the last one be uppercase. So now you've got a mixture of uppercase and lowercase. See? You can mix this up any way you like with any of the 3 sections. Mix and match and do whatever you want. Now, so that's super fancy. What are we going to do with all that? How are we going to remember that? The really nice thing about this, and again, I'm going to stick with my Bible example, but you can do this any way you like. Now, in my notes, I can write down, somehow indicating what the account is, and I'm going to be kind of cryptic about what account that is. And I'm going to say, for example, if I picked I picked a verse at random, which was out of the Bible, Old Testament, Leviticus, the book of Leviticus, chapter 9, verse 15. So I might write in my notes, LEV for Leviticus 9.15 or 9-15 or something, just to indicate to me that it's chapter 9, verse 15. And then I'm going to write, just to remind me that in this case I'm using 4 numbers and 4 characters, I'm going to put the pound sign 4 times pound, 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 and then asterisk 4 times asterisk, just because those are in kind of universal symbols to mean a value goes here, a numeric value goes here, or any kind of a character value goes here. And so that's just a reminder to me that, wink, wink, it's my special secret formula, and it's the one that starts with this verse and then has 4 numbers and then has 4 characters, and that's it. And if somebody were to get a hold of that code, they'd be looking at that going, Now, they might even figure out Leviticus 9:15. Hey, that looks like, Lev 9:15, that looks like a Bible thing. So they might figure out that we're using that, but they're not going to know exactly how we're using it. They won't know if we've decided to capitalize it in any way, the letters that are in those first 10 characters. And then, of course, they're not going to know the next 4 numbers because those are gibberish numbers made up of whatever, and they're not going to know the next 4 characters that come after it. And so even if they were to see your special little note code that you've left to yourself, unless it's, someone in your household who just knows you that well and you've shared your secrets with, there should be no way that they can decode your notes. So that's the important key is, it really stinks when we work hard to create a hard password and then we immediately forget what it was because we've made it too complicated for ourselves. And so this way you can write down your notes about what it is, and as long as you're consistent with your rules, then you'll be able to decode. And it might take you a second, and that's fine. But if this is your bank account, it's probably worth a second to go and look it up. And honestly, with these, you're going to start to remember them, right? And now what you might do over time or with different accounts is, all right, for this one, I just kind of randomly chose Leviticus 9:15. Maybe on my next password, I'm going to open up the book to a different place and put my finger down, and it's going to come up with something else. Probably won't talk about goats, but completely random, right? And so, but I'm going to use the same formula. I may or may not use the same dates. I might just stick with the same dates, but because those first 10 characters are going to be different, then, that gives me an incredible amount of difference from this password to the next password. Anyways, like you see the idea here, you can kind of mix it up and change it up, and that will give you the strong passwords that you need, the ability to write it down and keep track of it. That is going to keep you from losing track of everything going forward, and the world will be a better place. So there you go. That is how to create your very own unbreakable code. Have fun, and we'll see you later.